Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. Hope you guys are waking up and feeling great out there this morning and having a fantastic start to your work week. Hopefully, for most of us, we do have a short work week. Heck, maybe some folks have taken the entire week off. Maybe you just have to work a few days this week. But regardless, I hope you guys are doing well out there. Speaking of your Monday, it's going to be a pretty active day. Probably one of our most active days that we've seen in quite some time. And really the big weather topic will be severe weather. And then, we also are going to have a big time wind event across areas of the country also. The spine of the Appalachian Mountains are going to see a lot of strong wind action. We could have the potential for a dangerous situation that could unfold a little bit later today across the southern Appalachian Mountains. We have red flag warnings up. It's very dry, and fortunately, the rain is coming. Unfortunately, the winds are going to pick up before the rain comes in some of these areas. So that means that you're going to have a risk of some wildfires breaking out before the rain takes over these same areas. They're going to have strong winds before the rain moves in. So we'll speak on all that in this video. We'll break down the severe weather threat, we'll zoom into these areas, try to mention a couple towns and cities, things like that. And we'll break it down for you folks and keep you guys aware of what could happen today, because there is a pretty decent risk of tornadoes and strong winds and even hail today. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. And then folks, I do apologize. I've not answered any of the comments since Friday morning's video. It's typically like down the weekends. The weekends for me are much more busier than during the week. There's something constantly to do, and that's just how life is right now. So it's very hard for me to stop for about an hour, read all the comments, and focus on them. So I will get to them later this afternoon. I'll answer some of them this morning just because I know you guys will have questions about your general area with the severe weather, but I'll try to keep you guys updated with the comments as best as I can. So with that being said, let's get rocking this morning. Let's make sure this thing is working. It is. So what we got going out there, we're looking at water vapor loop, right? We have a surface low, probably somewhere into here in Oklahoma. It's somewhere in Oklahoma. It's hard to see off the water vapor loop. But basically, there's a low pressure, a surface low right here, okay? This is going to kind of drift, I would say, right on down here, and then eventually start heading north, all right? And as it does so, okay, this is going to bring a moist sector into the deep south. It's going to come up into East Texas also, and this is going to bring a lot of warm, moist air out the Gulf of Mexico down here. Now, as this is sort of dipping a little bit further south down into like southern Arkansas and then eventually back north through northern Mississippi and eventually through Tennessee, this is going to be strengthening. The surface low will be strengthening. Therefore, you're going to have a strengthening wind field. We call it a low-level jet, mid-level jet, but in this case, this will be a strengthening low-level jet. So winds will really start to pick up in this region right into here, okay? And then eventually on up the spine of the Appalachian Mountains too. Everybody north of the low, severe weather threat is basically non-existent, but you're going to have a lot of moisture up into this region, just putting check marks. And then everybody that will be south of the low will have a chance of severe weather. And I mean, we even have a marginal and even a slight risk into Tuesday too that we'll talk about a little bit more in the next video. But this is what's going on. The west is pretty quiet, and it's about to get more active for the mid-Atlantic to northeast too as we get later into the time period today and then eventually into tomorrow. Well, we do have winter weather advisories in areas of West Virginia, Virginia, into Pennsylvania for some light ice accumulations and a little bit of snow, and this could eventually creep northeast into the northeast. So this is what's going on today. The water vapor loop does not really show it that well, but I always like to show it to you folks just because it's a great way to kind of semi-geek out with the weather, to really see what's going on at the surface as far as water content in the atmosphere. I think it's a great way to show you guys, kind of get you guys an idea of what's going on. But speaking of the radar, I think a lot more people are more familiar with this. I mean, this system is right in the middle of the country at this point, okay? Nothing severe as of right now. A lot of rain spinning around in Missouri areas, basically the entire eastern half of Kansas. Heavy rain moving out of Oklahoma into Arkansas, the Ozarks, experiencing a very wet Monday morning, we got an area of kind of light to moderate rain that's already moved through areas of Tennessee, continues to do so. This shows rain in the mountainous regions of like Tennessee and even North Carolina, but this isn't falling. This isn't hitting the ground. I do not believe. Just the way this radar is sometimes shows rain in areas where it's not raining. It might not even be raining up here in the Midwest, but this is definitely rain falling in the Missouri region. And yeah, this is just the beginning stages today, just like in the morning of any kind of severe weather threat of basically this low pressure. It's called a positively tilted trough in this case, which typically is a weaker system. But just because it's positively tilted does not mean that you can't have severe weather out of it. The dynamic systems we really watch out for is the negatively tilted trough. Okay, we'll talk more on that when it's needed. It's not really needed right now. Just in general, we got a system today that's going to produce severe weather today into tomorrow. So speaking of the Storm Prediction Center, okay, this is a broad look at it, and we'll zoom in here in a second. All right, we have an enhanced risk, which goes from about Lufkin, Texas, all the way through Jackson, pretty much all the way to Meridian, Mississippi. Okay, so an enhanced risk, which is a level 3 out of 5. So you got a couple more levels to go. So this is right in the kind of right in the medium, if you will. So right in the middle. Can't talk this morning, but once you start to get to an enhanced risk, this is when you really, really take it serious. This is typically when you have an increased tornado threat, and this is when we need to really watch out. So I'm going to keep it at this, and then we're going to zoom into this area here in a second. Typically, I'll go through all the categories on this, but just give me 1 second. When we break down the severe weather, I will break down what the enhanced risk means for these regions. So stay tuned with me. Just hold tight. Excessive rainfall, we have a marginal risk. There's no big risk of flash flooding today, but I could see this increasing to a 15% risk somewhere. As of now, flash flooding, a ton of rain, not a big threat. We really need the rain in these areas, but unfortunately for some of these areas, in order to get the rain, you're going to have to get through the severe weather threat. So that's not the case for everyone, but we'll see if this increases. Right now, just a marginal risk of flash flooding, 5% risk. Watches, warnings, advisories, what we got out there. A lot of wind alerts. So we got wind advisories, high wind watches, high wind warnings, wind advisories for the entire northern half of Alabama, North Georgia, several counties in Mississippi, a lot of counties in Tennessee, basically the heart of Tennessee, up the Cumberland Plateau. They're not really up for the valley region between the Apps and the Cumberland Plateau, but it's going to be breezy there too. And one thing, it's probably kind of hard to see on your screen, but if you see this hot pink region up the west slopes of the mountains of Tennessee, that is red flag warnings. You got a couple areas also in North Carolina. One thing you don't see on this map is the high wind warnings. You also have high wind warnings for these higher elevations, especially the Tennessee side of the mountains, as this wind field will basically move to the west of the Appalachian Mountains here in Tennessee and North Carolina and Virginia. But you got high wind warnings, wind advisories for the North Carolina mountains. Probably some areas in the higher elevations have high wind warnings too. But listen, in general, this is a dangerous situation that it could unfold for the Southern Apps. And we're going to have a portion of this video talking about that too. Out west, it's very windy. Continues to be very windy out here. So that's really the only active thing. We still have lingering winter weather advisories for a little bit of snow today. And then check out this. You got the winter weather advisories in the higher elevations of West Virginia, Maryland, Virginia, and then a few counties in Pennsylvania. A lot of fog that you're dealing with in South Georgia and Florida today. So that's what's going on as far as warnings. So let's zoom in. We're gonna break down the severe weather threat yet again. Okay. What I can tell you is the risk category level has not really changed. It hasn't really broadened, shrinked really at all. It's about the same. So the closer look at this is an enhanced risk level 3 out of 5. And this runs us to just about all the way to Lufkin, Texas. Okay. Kind of goes all the way up into Monroe, Louisiana. This does cover Alexandria. Doesn't quite get down to Baton Rouge. Does get all the way through Vicksburg, Jackson, all of southwest Mississippi, and almost gets all the way to Meridian. Not quite. But, I would say that it gets all the way, basically touches Hattiesburg. Okay. Slight risk, a little bit deeper further west in Texas, all the way up into southern Arkansas. Okay. All the way up here into the northern portions of Mississippi, and it gets pretty much all the way to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, all the way down to Mobile, Alabama, Gulfport, and covers all of Baton Rouge and New Orleans, okay? And Lake Charles, you guys, I would say is probably in the, definitely the slight risk. So closer look at this. So what are your risk categories for today? Tornado risk. Okay, that is day 2. Let's get back to day 1. Here we go. There is a risk for day 2 for tomorrow. But this is your risk of tornadoes, okay? Pretty much everybody in the enhanced risk, okay, that I just mentioned that are in the enhanced risk. So in the yellow region, if you live here, you have a 10% risk of a tornado today within 25 miles in a given location. Not only do you have the 10% risk of a tornado, you also have a 10% risk of a significant tornado. Okay, that isn't 10 plus 10 equals 20 in this case. Both are their own threat percentage. Okay, so basically you have what we call a 10% hatched risk of a tornado today, which means you also have a risk of significant tornadoes, which is an EF2 or higher. Okay, hail threat today, just your standard typical 15% risk of hail that you normally get with a slight or enhanced risk. Okay, now sometimes you can have a hail-driven enhanced risk, but in this case, you got a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger in the yellow area right here. Okay, so there will be a risk of hail today, especially with any storms that can really become discrete and really fully mature into a supercell. Wind threat is the highest, I would say, in the eastern section of this severe weather threat today. And this is because with this surface low that's going to be moving in this region right here, you will have a strengthening wind field because you have a strengthening surface low in response. Okay, and I would say that these winds will really begin to pick up, even if you're not even dealing with any storms, more so in northeast and eastern sections of Louisiana, into central and all of southwest areas of Mississippi. We're in the red, which does include like, Vicksburg, Hattiesburg, and Jackson, Mississippi. Okay, you do have that 30% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in any given location. We'll see if this increases today. I could see this maybe extended a little bit further northeast, but as of now, this has not changed much from last night. So we dove deep into the ingredients driving this in last night's video. We're not going to do that in this video. We'll talk a little bit about them, but I really geeked out with you folks in last night's video, which was like 40 minutes long. We're not going to do that again. We're going to give you the information that most just want to see, and I think it's important just to give you the straightforward information here now that we're pretty much the day of the event. So this morning we already have some showers, some convection ongoing in areas of Texas. All right. As we move further in the time period, if you're confused about what time frame we're at any point, this is Central Time. This time up here, I can't change it to Central Time. So back this up 1 hour. So this is saying 10 a.m. today. This is in Eastern Time. Back it up to 9 a.m. Okay. We already have some storms at 9 a.m. ongoing in Eastern Texas. Already got some storms in Tyler. Could have some storms up to Texarkana, which I think you guys are a little bit out of the severe weather threat, but you could have some severe weather today. Was that Palestine, or what do y'all say, Palestine or Palestine? I think I had some people in the comments correcting my punctuation with some of these towns, but like I said, I just have not had a chance to read them. So you guys continue to correct me. I take no offense to it, but please don't be offended if I mess up your town's name. I'm not the best at punctuation, not at all. I give it my best shot here. Lufkin begins to see a threat of some severe weather. And then as we start to get to about 1 p.m., this is around 1 p.m., you start to get some bad weather that potentially moves even into southern areas of Arkansas, any towns, communities in that area. Shreveport begins to get under the weather here with a risk of severe weather. And then we start to move it to about 4 p.m. This is when I want you to look at the structure of these storms. Okay, up here in Arkansas, it looks like just a bunch of congealed convection, probably strong winds, a risk of severe weather. But once you start to get into Louisiana, you start to see the structure of these storms change to more of like that kidney bean look, right? You see how they're kind of hooking right into here? All right, that to me screams what we call semi-discrete supercells, which means that they're not fully discrete, they're not fully on their own, they're kind of connected to other storms, but they got enough separation to really take advantage of the ingredients in place. And sure enough, if you're in eastern Texas, Eastern Texas, it looks like the severe weather threat, most of the action is beginning to leave the state by early to mid-afternoon. Okay, you still got a lingering severe weather threat, but it really begins to shift into Louisiana about mid to late afternoon. Okay, so we got ongoing severe weather basically affecting Shreveport, Monroe, especially. Man, I would watch out Monroe right around 4 to 5 p.m. All right, down here to Alexandria, storm threat begins to get going here. I don't think you'll have as widespread coverage down here in southern Louisiana, but anything that does get going in southern Louisiana has an all hazards kind of threat. Okay, and then we start to get more so into Mississippi. Okay, and we're going to go on and flip this and look at this. Okay, start to get more so into Mississippi, and this is when the winds really start to pick up. I keep mentioning it. You have a deepening surface low somewhere right into here. You got a wind-driven moderate to heavy rain in Memphis. Okay, severe weather threat not as high, but you could have just some damaging winds just with some strong winds moving through Memphis around dinner time tonight. Winds are really beginning to pick up with some heavy rain beginning to fall in western areas of Tennessee, northern Mississippi, and you even got some scattered convection ongoing in western Alabama. So this is around 6 p.m. Still severe storms ongoing in northeast and eastern areas of Louisiana. And then this really begins to affect Jackson, Vicksburg, pretty much. How do you say that name? And I have somebody, a viewer who always says this is where they're from. What is it? Natchez? I know I'm messing that up. You guys correct me. I keep avoiding it, but I don't want to avoid it too much longer. But down here near that region, Woodville, severe weather threat begins to move in late afternoon, early evening, 6 to 8 p.m. These storms could get really bad down here. And then we start to get into the 9 to 10 p.m. You still got severe weather. You got to watch these cells down here in southern Louisiana. Okay, you really do. Even Lake Charles all the way to Baton Rouge. Watch out these little tail end cells here. But you continue to move through, and the heart of Mississippi being affected by this severe weather, and this continues to move through. And like I said, we got to watch these storms from Jackson to Meridian, anywhere from 8 p.m. to about midnight. And these continue, and you still have ongoing severe weather tonight, guys. We're starting to get after midnight. At this point, we start to get some strong to severe storm potential here in Gulfport. And it starts to flirt with like Mobile a little bit later tonight. And we have I wouldn't even call it a broken up line of storms. Basically in the wee hours of the morning, you could get woke up by some lightning, some thunder in Birmingham all the way up to Huntsville. And these, especially the further north you get in Alabama, up into the Cumberland Plateau of Tennessee, the winds will be howling. Okay, very strong winds. Now, they'll start to be settling down probably by the time I'm waking up tomorrow morning. But these storms will be packing a punch all through the night, all through the early morning hours of tomorrow. And then we're waking up tomorrow morning with some gusty winds in Atlanta, some storms in Columbus, all the way down to Montgomery, Alabama. So I definitely need to be weather aware today. And speaking of that updraft helicity swath, and guys, what you're looking at basically is what the latest long-range HRRR model is trying to show where these storms will rotate the best. Okay, just because you see a highlighted color over your area in Louisiana, that doesn't mean that you got a extremely high chance to get a tornado. This is just one run of the HRRR model. It changes every hour at this point. But the latest long-range run, okay, really likes northern Louisiana later this afternoon for a threat of a couple tornadoes. And this gets all the way into Mississippi. You see some highlight areas. And then not to ignore our folks in eastern areas of Texas just a little bit later this morning. From basically all the way down Interstate 20, Tyler to Longview, Marshall. Just watch out just north and south of this region, okay? We really do need to watch out for these areas. Look at the deep south from the updraft helicity swath. Waking up in the wee hours of the morning tomorrow morning, I would, give yourself some extra time. Be a little bit more weather aware from Tuscaloosa all the way up to Birmingham. It does indicate the threats of some rotation with this. So legit tornado risk today. And guys, the winds really begin to pick up. These are maximum wind gust swath off the HRRR model. And it really begins to pick up. Okay, in Mississippi, where you have that 30% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. You could have some 40 to 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts in these areas, and it really begins to pick up. Like I said about 4 times just now, as you get into southwest Mississippi, and then once you get up into areas of the deep south, just in general, it really begins to pick up, like in northern Mississippi and northern Alabama, where I'm telling you guys, up here in northeast Mississippi, northern Alabama, central Tennessee, guys, that's why you have wind advisories. The ARRR model is going for 40 to 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts as we're getting later tonight. Okay, this is a serious deal. I think these winds are really going to produce. You guys will have to let me know what you see out here. But we're going to talk a little bit more about this area right here in a second. But moving forward here, this is why the winds are so bad. Okay, you see this area in purple scattered about. This is what we call winds in the low levels of the atmosphere, which is about a mile above our heads, 4,000 to 6,000 feet. Okay, give or take 1,000. All right, so we get this moving. Just making sure we got this working here. All right, this is starting off this afternoon. You have a building 30 to 40 knot low level jet, which totally supports enough shear in the atmosphere for tornadoes and a wind threat. All right, you keep this going. This is the biggest concern, not the biggest concern for today, but the biggest concern with winds. As you're moving into around late, I would say mid to late evening into the overnight hours, you have a strengthening low-level jet. Look at these winds about a mile above our heads here in northwest Mississippi, 60 to 70 knots. That's well over interstate speed winds just above our heads, okay? And this is strengthening in Tennessee and northern Alabama. And then look at it as it starts to get up into Nashville, up into southern Kentucky. And this is the concern, guys, okay? Yes, you're saying, well, Mitch, it doesn't mean much if that's a mile above our heads. But you got to understand, what you got to understand is these winds are right above our heads. They're mixing to the surface. They're not as strong at the surface. But when you have winds, I mean, just about a mile above our heads, that's not that high, really, is it? You really start to get some of these stronger winds mixed to the surface. In response, you get 30 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts, which could toss a lot of things around. So this morning, as you're waking up, before you're heading to work in the Mid-South, I'm telling you, I would fasten some stuff down. I would just make sure things are tied down, because these winds are going to move in, and at the surface, they're going to reach. And this is a massive wind field in response to this deepening low pressure that is going to basically eject across the eastern portion of the country, up the Mississippi Valley, into areas of the Ohio Valley. So this is really what's causing all the strong wind threats for later today, especially as it gets pushed up against the higher terrain of the southern Appalachian Mountains. So speaking of these winds, we'll start off this afternoon, right? And we're going to compare this to the rainfall coming for these drought-stricken regions of the southern Apps, okay? So this morning, you just got some gusty conditions, normal kind of conditions in the mountains, some 25, 35 mile per hour wind gusts. Now, as we are moving into the overnight hours, okay, this makes it even more dangerous, because the winds will be the highest when the sun's down. It's a nocturnal wind threat and a nocturnal wildfire threat. Okay, as we are moving, into the middle of the night, literally 1, 2 a.m., all right, these are winds gusting in the Nashville area, points east, up into the Cumberland Plateau. Winds are gusting to 40 to 50 miles per hour. Very windy night in northern Alabama, northern Georgia. And then look at these winds in areas of the mountains, up against the Smokies. You're getting winds to 50 to 60 to 70 miles per hour. Look at the winds picking up in West Virginia, gusty winds up into Kentucky, areas of Indiana and Ohio. This is serious, okay? And then it dies off probably tomorrow afternoon. The thing that is unfortunate about this is I want to show you this, okay? These are winds already gusting in the mountains at 20, 30, I would say 30 to 40 miles per hour. You compare that with where the rain's going to be at. The rain has not moved in the same time period. Okay, we compare this with this. Winds already gusting, like I said, 30, 40, 50 miles per hour. You compare that with this, the rain has not moved in. So what I'm saying is you got a lot of strong wind activity, okay, ahead of the rain, which is not good. Okay, so it's going to remain dry until the rain moves in, right? So, I know I keep comparing it to this, but, it kind of reminds me of what happened in Gatlinburg, I believe the last day of November back in 2016. You know, we had a lot of strong wind activity ahead of the rain, and it caused the wildfires to break out and all of that stuff. Let's hope nothing like that happens. It can happen fast, guys. For you folks in the Gatlinburg area that live in the region or know about it, you know how fast it can happen. So please be aware of the fire situation today. It's why you have red flag warnings. Do not throw a cigarette out your car. Man, it could ruin someone's life, threaten somebody's life. So here comes the rain. This is the rest of the southeast today, and there's those storms moving through Alabama. And the good news is the rain finally does move in. We get some heavy rain too. And as we're waking up tomorrow morning, we're waking up to storms in southeast Alabama, the western panhandle of Florida, heavy rain in northern Georgia. Rain is in the upstate of South Carolina, the Piedmont, North Carolina, and then rain's basically heading on up the spine of the Appalachian Mountains. So how much rain could fall just between now and the next 24 hours? As you notice, the heavy rain has not made it yet to the mountainous regions. And the guys, the reason I'm talking about the mountains so much is because I am pretty concerned about the fire threat today. I really am, and locals are too. So we need to hope and pray that it does not unfold the way that it could. So, but a lot of rainfall. You know, Memphis going for over 2 inches of rain today. Arkansas, Little Rock, 1 to 2 inches of rain is possible, and a lot of rain can fall in the western half of Kentucky. But if you keep this going through the next 24 hours after, and basically into Wednesday morning, a lot of rain is going to fall in these areas that really, really need it. That's the good news from this. We're going to get a lot of good rain. Okay, Florida, you're kind of left high and dry with this system just because the low pressure is moving so far north. But a lot of rains are heading to these drought-stricken regions of the south. So moving past that, guys, good luck today. Keep me updated on what you're seeing. Hopefully it does not materialize as bad as it potentially could. So the Northeast today, pretty quiet for most of the period. Not really anything going on. It's just when it moves into tonight, into the wee hours of the morning, rain will begin to move into Ohio from the southwest. Rain will begin to overspread all of West Virginia. And we're waking up tomorrow morning with some icing in these higher elevations of West Virginia, and a little bit of snow could fall, even in areas of kind of the higher terrain of the Pennsylvania region, right in the middle of Pennsylvania. Could get a front-end thumping of snow. H-Tripora model's pumping out some pretty wild amounts. Not sure if I believe it. I think we'll stick with the National Weather Service with this one. Western Maryland, icing. So not going to get too deep into tomorrow, but we will give you the ice totals through basically Wednesday morning, going for over a 1/4 inch of ice in certain areas in West Virginia. Let's hope that does not happen. That is, dangerous ice totals. Once you get over a 1/4 inch, we start to have issues. But going for a 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch of ice in certain areas in western Maryland. Could get a little ice a little bit further east of Maryland. And then a glaze into the Pennsylvania region. Okay, what about snow? You could get a dusting of snow up into Pennsylvania. And we're going to get more winter weather into the interior sections of the Northeast, but just due to time, we don't ever have a whole lot of time to really dive into the Northeast again like we did last night's video. Check out last night's video, and I'll do that. And then here in the next video, I will talk about the wind threat for the Northeast. But this is why you got winter weather advisories in a few counties in Pennsylvania, a couple counties in Maryland, several counties in West Virginia, and about 2 counties in Virginia. This combined with the winds, we hope that the ice does not accumulate to much, or we could have some issues because of the winds, maybe some scattered power outages. But just a quick hitting ice event for you folks. The South Central U.S., pretty quiet today. Well, I wouldn't say it's quiet because I've been so used to saying that I need to stop saying it. But of course we know it's going to be active this morning in eastern Texas. We hope that it doesn't evolve the way it could. But you're going to be dealing with some storms throughout eastern Texas today. Could get some storms as far west as the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but really points east is what we are concerned about this afternoon, really early this afternoon in northeast and eastern Texas. So please be careful. By the time we get into dinner time tonight, I think things will calm down. Could have another area of showers and storms that do form here in eastern Oklahoma, but I think that the severe weather threat is over. Deal with some light to moderate rain all day in Missouri. This will be a chilly rain potential. And then just widespread moderate rain really takes over Illinois. But the rest of the area today, outside of what I just mentioned, pretty quiet. Kind of the western frame of the South Central region, pretty quiet, windy. That's about it. The North Central today, rain will spread in from the northern kind of fringe of this system. And here comes another system diving down to try to meet it. Once upon a time, the models did have these meeting, but not really anymore. But rain begins to take over southeast Iowa, pretty much all of Illinois later tonight. Steady rain really takes over the St. Louis region if it's not already raining out there this morning, but it really begins to take over St. Louis, Peoria, Springfield, everybody in Illinois, even as far north as Rockford, Chicago. And then some heavy rain begins to move in, maybe even some gusty winds into southern Indiana. And then by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning, guys, this rain makes it all the way up into northern Michigan. And we're waking up tomorrow morning to just a nice steady rain in Chicago, all the way to, Indianapolis, all the way up to Cleveland, Columbus. Yeah, everybody's waking up to some widespread rain. So how much rain could fall between now and Tuesday morning? Missouri, Illinois, Indiana. This is rising totals too. In fact, we're just going and take it all the way till Wednesday morning. Between now and Wednesday morning, anywhere from ½ inch to 1 inch of rain. From Missouri, basically through the Midwest, through Ohio Valley. Kentucky will get a little bit more rain, inch and a half. So, yeah. Western U.S., it's a quiet day. Very windy day. We're going to have some snow drifting through areas of southern Wyoming. The front range of Colorado, maybe a little bit of snow in Denver today. Not going to add up to a ton, but the rest of the western U.S., it's pretty quiet. A little bit of a break today. Breezy conditions for a lot of folks, but pretty quiet for the most part. Temperatures, pretty warm, humid across the deep south with that rising moist sector in response to that low. 60s and 70s for highs. A little bit cooler in the Midwest, 40s. It's very chilly in the Northeast. The highs might not get out the 30s for Boston or the 40s for New York City. Chilly day in the Mid-Atlantic, only 40s, maybe some 50s. Kind of middle grounds in the Carolinas. Kind of your first widespread day in a while that you're just going to stay locked below freezing in the Northeast. And pretty chilly in the middle of the country, but nothing too crazy. And pretty much below average for everybody out west. Okay, so... yeah, not going to get too deep in like we have been about what's going forward. We're just, we're past 30 minutes on this video and I need to get going. But what I can tell you is through the 27th and the 3rd of December, below average temperatures look to take over most of the country. Now, this could change a lot. You guys know that. But, the entire country just about has a chance of below average temperatures to really end the last couple of days in November to start the first few days of December. And you add that with an active southern jet, we got to watch out. Not saying we're going to get snow in the south, but I am saying that we got more rainstorms coming. And who knows, somewhere in the middle of the country, we got to watch out for some winter weather. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and have a great day.